Hello and welcome again to another episode of Learning is Easy with Teacher Fish. Today's video is about the second section of a research report, known as the main body of the research section. Before we proceed, please be sure to subscribe to my channel, and do not forget to press like at the end of the video. Also, be sure that you have watched the first part of our video about the parts of a research report. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. The content of each part of the main body section of a research report was made for the sole purpose of exemplifying what an actual research report content should look like. And so, the main body of a research report section is like the meat of a sandwich. Here, you have to provide all the details related to your study. Now, in writing the body of your research, the following have to be included. The introduction. The review of literature, or sometimes called the review of related literature. The account of investigation, or better known as methods. The findings or results. The discussion part. And the conclusion. An important thing to remember is that contents of the main body of the research section should be on a continuous flow. What I mean is, you do not have to separate each component in a different page. However, since we are studying how to write each part of the main body, we will have separate pages for each to highlight the different components that comprise the main body of the research. So let us take a look at them one by one. First, the introduction. Always be sure that a brief title of the research, or the main title for that matter, is written on the top right part of the page. Across it should be the page number. Then it is followed by the full title of your research at the top center of the page, below the brief title and page number. Also, be sure that you observe proper spacing. Double space is always suggested when writing a research report, and that there is an empty space between the title and the first line of the introduction. The introduction should begin with the statement of the problem, or the statement that presents the problem that the research report will address, followed by the significance of the problem. Next comes the purpose of the research. It emphasizes the objectives and provides the theoretical outline of the research, background information of the topic, and the reason for conducting the research. Then the statement of hypothesis. It is a statement that predicts the relationship between variables, or a clear explanation of an occurrence that can be proved or disproved. On the other hand, the assumption is an unexamined belief that the relationship between two variables exists and is discoverable. Next, content of the introduction are the limitations. Limitations in research is defined as the shortcomings of a research report, be it practical or theoretical, that are usually beyond the control of the researcher. Finally, the definition of important terms. From the name itself, it is the explanation and clarification of important terms and/or concepts used in the research. The next component of the main body of the research is the review of literature. In a nutshell, it is the location, identification, and examination of documents that are related with your research. In other words, this part is a survey of existing knowledge, and those that need additional examination in the specific area of study. Its function is to inform the reader about the area under study, and include what is known about it. Review of literature also involves an analysis and outline of various research works that are relevant to your methodical investigation. When writing the review of literature, be sure that the brief title of the research report and page number still appear on the top right part of the page. Then the title, Review of Literature, must be written at the top center below the brief title and page, then an empty space between it and the first line of the content. When writing the review of literature, consider these 5 key steps. Search for related literature or study. Evaluate sources. Remember that not all sources of information are trustworthy. Next, identify themes and holes. Then, plan the structure. Finally, write. The third component of the main body of the research is the account of investigation, better known as the methods. It is the part that describes the approaches the researcher used in conducting the study. It also contains the samples or the participants and/or the subject of the research. It is a detailed explanation of how the whole process of the research was conducted, including data gathering and investigative measures, which should be readily available when the need to assume a related study arises. This part of the main body of the research has to have a heading or title, methods, or account of investigation. The same as what you did with the introduction and review of literature. Needless to say, it still has the brief title of the research report, and page number on the top right of the page. It also follows the same spacing as the intro and review of literature. To write the account of investigation, you have to first restate the issue at hand, or the research problem. Then describe samples or participants and how they were selected. You must also explain your chosen approach, qualitative, quantitative, or mixed method. Now, if there are uncommon approaches used in your research, then you also have to talk about why the particular approach is necessary. Next, describe how you gathered information and expound on methods used in data analysis. Then you have to assess and validate your chosen processes. Finally, discuss any difficulties encountered and how you overcame them. Now, sometimes there is a need to reference all sources used to determine your chosen approach, since this helps strengthen the validity of your study. The next component is called findings. Again, the same rules with titles, page number, and spacing are followed should the component be written on a separate page. Findings is the clarification section where the results of a systematic investigation are gauged and assessed. Here, the tables and figures, if any, are presented. Additionally, they describe both abstract and realistic findings through data analysis. The main purposes are to use collected information to answer the research question earlier posed on the introduction, even when the results challenge the hypotheses, and make recommendations for future studies. To efficiently write the findings of your research report, remember these few steps. First, consider the structure of your findings section, including how you will organize the information. Your findings may be organized according to the sequence of the research questions or hypotheses, or in alignment with the order outlined in the methods section. You may alternatively arrange them chronologically, or categorize them by significance or subject. You may also include appendices for specialized details that might be too long or distracting for some readers. Next is data presentation. Include both quantitative and qualitative data, and utilize visual aids such as tables, charts, graphs, and figures to present information. Make sure that tables and figures are numbered, with clear labels and captions. Then discuss patterns, correlations, and trends in the data. And then link your findings with the study questions or hypotheses. Finally, acknowledge any limitations of the study, such as weaknesses in the data or methodology. Discuss how these limitations may have influenced the results. Findings section may also contain contextualization and ethical considerations related to the results. Moving on, so the findings is followed by the discussion. Before we focus on this section of your research report, let us first understand the difference between findings and discussion. The findings section presents data objectively, collected during the study without any detailed interpretation. On the other hand, the discussion section serves as the clarification section of findings. It is the section of the research report where the researcher gauges and assesses results. Likewise, this section shows abstract and realistic conclusions of the findings and makes recommendations for future study. When writing the discussion part of your research report, remember to first summarize any key findings. Then give your interpretation. Now, to form your interpretation, try to find correlation between data collected, discuss if the results met your expectations or supported your hypotheses, contextualize your findings within previous theory and research, explain unexpected results, and consider possible arguments on your position. The next thing to do is to discuss any implications. In doing so, Always remember to relate the results with the related context you mentioned in the review of literature. You also have to accredit limitations and finally, make your recommendations. The last component of the main body of the research is the conclusion. It is defined as the summary of the main points from the discussion. Its purpose is to gauge the outcomes with respect to the research questions, indicate whether theories are accepted or not, summarize key findings, and draw all arguments together. In other words, it presents a justification for each outcome and show whether the results are uniform with your hypotheses, or if other research studies have equivalent results. Again, when writing the conclusion, consider restating the problem addressed in your research, summarize your overall arguments and findings, and suggest important takeaways from your report. Here is another useful tip when writing the conclusion of your research report. Avoid beginning your conclusion with phrases like, "in conclusion," or, "to conclude," because this can sound as too obvious and make your writing seem unsophisticated. The content and placement of your conclusion should make its function clear without the need for additional signposting. So this is the end of our lesson video about the main body of a research report. But we are not just done yet, as we still have the last section of your report, which we will talk about on the next lesson video. So be sure that you are already subscribed to the channel to stay updated, and do not forget to press like, and leave a feedback or question on the comment section. And always remember, writing a research report is easy, if you know what to do. With that, see you on the next episode of Learning is Easy with Teacher Fish.